I'll be covering Introduction to Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, NLP, neuro refers to a nervous system which uses our five senses to gather information. Linguistics refer to the language of our five senses, and programming refers to changing the way our brain functions. A simple definition is NLP is the user manual for the brain. NLP is anything that works. Now, NLP works on the premise that your mind works like a computer. Now, the brain has got the conscious part and the subconscious part. The conscious part of your mind is a combination of CPU and the screen. The subconscious mind is your disk or storage. And input devices are your cells. You will come to know more about this later in the workshop. Origin of NLP, 1970, University of California. That is a gentleman called Dr. Richard Bandler, who's an information scientist, and Mr. John Render, who's a linguist. They believe that if a computer can be reprogrammed, it would be possible to reprogram mind as well. So what they did is they got hold of about 7 people who were very good in their field, studied them, noted down what are the points which made them great. Then they picked up another 7 people who were on the threshold of the careers, same as the people who were already good. The information of what made them great was given to these people. They were asked to emulate these signs. For the 7 people who were given the details how other people became great, they took a relatively short time and reaching greatness in their respective fields. And of course, they carried on with a lot of their experiments later. This was only their first experiment. What is NLP? Psychiatry is a study of mentally abnormal people. NLP is based on study of successful people. NLP is used as a counseling tool as well as a management tool. I've mainly been using this as a management tool. At times, I've used it for therapeutic reasons also, but that's rarely. Now, NLP is like religion. If you believe in it, it works. If you do not believe, it does not work. Just like your belief, most people believe in God. Therefore, when you go to some religious place and pray at home, it gives you some benefit. But if you do not believe in religion, it doesn't make a difference. My request is, for the sake of this workshop, just believe that NLP works. The major problem is for engineers, because we are highly logical, and for everything we require a logic to prove that it works. In NLP, there is no logic. It is purely a belief. Now I'll go on to something called internal representation. So we'll talk about a dog. Now, there are various types of people. Some people love dogs. Some people are pretty scared about dogs. And for others, a dog is just a dog. Just imagine on tomorrow is Sunday, and for you, it'll be tomorrow. For me, it is today. Anyway, it's a holiday and you all decide to go on a picnic. Maybe with your own group. In the afternoon, in a picnic, there isn't much activity. So 3 of you decide to take a walk. One person loves dogs. Another person is pretty scared of dogs. And the third person, for him, a dog is just a dog. As they're walking down a small path, they find a dog coming towards them. It's a pretty big dog. It has got collar and all that. But Now just see what happens in the minds of the people, three different people. The person who loves the dog is waiting for the dog so that you can pet him. The other person who doesn't like dogs is slightly moving away, looking for stones and sticks to defend yourself because he's pretty scared of dogs. And for the third person, what's all this tamasha about? Just a dog is coming, what's so great about it? Now you see, there is just one dog, but the representation of the dog in the minds of three people are in three different ways. Actually, you form an internal representation about everything that you've come across in life. Now, this is very important because the internal representation sticks with you. The person who's not very fond of dogs, probably in childhood, has had a nasty time with a dog which came chasing him or bit him. After that, dogs are taboo. They are dangerous. Whereas the person who loves dogs may have had a dog in the house and thereafter he has been very fond of petting dogs, even if it's a strange dog. So each of us have an internal representation about everything we have come across in life, right from childhood onwards. This is important because it's a very, very strong character within you. It's very, very difficult to change this. And a lot of our interpersonal problems which we face in our work side is due to this. Based on input, experience has created the mind as internal representation, that's IR, in the form of pictures, sound, and feelings. This may be different for different people. For each person, internal representation is reality. Brain does not know the difference. Now, please take out your pad or paper. The small exercise, do it as quickly as you can. Draw square and divide it into 4 equal parts. You can draw it of any size. Just, you can draw it like a sketch. Divide into 4 equal parts. It's a very simple exercise. I am presuming that all of you have done it. So I am going. Now, some of you may have got this. Some of you may have done this. Some of you have got this. At least some of you may have got more than one. Which I should generally what comes up in the beginning are these. But then after about drawing 2 or 3 squares, most would have drawn only 1 square. Few others would have drawn more than 1 square, but maximum you may have gone to is only probably up to about 3. Now you see the various possibilities. Is this not possible? Is this not possible? Is this not possible? Is this not possible? So you see, what happens is, this is again due to some internal representation. Most of us have studied in India in schools, and schools teachers are very, very particular that if you are asked a question, it has got only one right answer. That is what is given in the textbook. We were not encouraged to think beyond that. So for most of us, this has become an internal representation with us. So when you're faced with a problem, you only think about one solution and you feel that there is only one right solution. But because of this particular nature of yours, which started because of the internal representation from childhood, this is still carrying on with you. There are methods to get out of it, but unfortunately I cannot cover this today in the short time. Your next exercise. select one that which does not fit the set. You can just write in using A, B, C, D or E, whichever you feel like. Select the one which does not fit the set. Now you might have selected various alphabets from A to E. Now let us see one by one. It can be A because it is the only circle. It can also be B because it's only the only triangle. It can be C because it is an ellipse with another ellipse cut out. It can be D because it's 1/3 of a circle. It can also be E. It is a circle with 2 ellipses cut out. Therefore, whenever you are faced with a problem, try and get the maximum amount of possible solution. Some of them may even be weird. Then narrow it down to the best possible one. If you stick with the first one that hits your mind, which you think is the only solution, you may end up in trouble. Now comes something called experiential learning. I do all my 1-day, 2-day, 3-day workshops mostly using experiential learning because people get bored about lectures. So just like I did a small part in making you also part of this workshop, what I made you do is a part of experiential learning. But to understand this better, let us go back to our earlier days, between the age of 7 and 10. And you're learning to cycle. You procured a cycle, got your father, brother, or uncle to help you out, got up on 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. It will be probably on the road in front of your house because every house does not come with a Maidan. There you are, made to sit on the cycle, and unfortunately it rained a bit the previous night, so your whoever is helping you has told you to be slightly careful. Anyway, that person pushes you, you are asked to pedal, you gain some momentum, and at that spot, the person is helping you leaves the cycle. You are very, very happy because you are in charge of a vehicle for the first time in your life. But that happiness is short-lived because the paper boy is crossing the road. Now you do not know what to do. All you know is to go straight. You do not know how to veer off. You do not know how to use the bell. You do not know how to use the brake. Net result is catastrophe. You hit the paper boy. His paper goes flying. He falls down. You also fall down. You are slightly hurt in the knees. End of lesson 1. You go back home, wash up, apply some plaster and bandage while your father is paying up for the lost newspapers. So that has happened long, long back. And probably you may be remembering very little of it. Because it happened so many years back, so many decades back, in fact. Now let us come back. We are talking about the picnic which you are going. Now, you had to reach that particular picnic spot. You had decided to start early because there would be lesser traffic on the road. You're driving. You got your spouse or a friend sitting next to you. And it's just natural, as you drive, you talk to the person sitting next to you, especially if there is not much of traffic in the road. But then, suddenly you find a person crossing the road. Now, you stop talking, all attention is on that person. Because if you are not careful and if you do not do the right thing, you are going to end up in problem by hitting that chap. So what do? You have to take a decision what to do. So you quickly send a message to the conscious part of the brain. Hey, what should I do? What has been our previous experiences when I'm in charge of a vehicle and somebody is crossing the road? Now, all in your driving career, you would have had so many experiences. Your vehicle dented, you have dented somebody else's vehicle, you are hurt, somebody else hurt, etc., etc. Every single bit of these experience is stored in your subconscious mind, which is your hard disk. Now, your conscious part of the brain, which is CPU, sends out a signal to the subconscious part. Hey, what all have been our experiences while I am in charge of a vehicle and somebody is crossing the road right in front of the car. So it picks out in nanoseconds, it picks out all the experiences and gives it to the person driving, that is yourself. Now, based on this, a quick analysis is made and a decision is taken what to do. If it is for veering away, instructions go to both your hand to veer away. If it is to brake, instructions from your mind, that's your CPU, goes to your leg to brake. Or if it's to horn, instruction goes to one hand. Now, the best part of it is when the brain, subconscious brain was giving experiences, the cycling incident was also included because you were in charge of a vehicle and somebody came in front. So this particular small incident, without your knowledge, has come to help you in taking a decision. So that is the beauty of neuro-linguistic programming. Your mind helps you to do a lot of things in nanoseconds without you even realizing it. Whatever instructions are received from the brain, that part of the body will obey the instructions from the brain, barring disability. I'll read this again. Whatever instructions are received from the brain, that part of the body will obey the instructions from the brain, barring disability. For this, we will do a small exercise. Normally, I do detailed ones in my workshop where people physically participate and it goes right in. Now, in this webinar, I've got limitations because I really cannot see what you people are doing. Doesn't matter. So what I want you to do is just hold out your two fingers in the shape of a V in front of you. Now, don't hold this in front of your computer screen. It can be against a wall or something like this so that you're not distracted by what is on the computer screen. Now, as far as your fingers are concerned, God has added something specifically for you. He has attached two strong magnets at the tip of your fingers. So, when you put your fingers out like this, there is a strong pull between the fingers to bring it closer together like this. But your task is to keep your fingers. You can even talk to your fingers, there's no problem. But make sure that as far as possible, the fingers do not come close by. So I'm starting the exercise with myself. Yeah, I can feel the push, the pull. In fact, ends of my fingers are trying to come closer and closer. I'm trying my best to keep them away. I have to keep it away because that is a task given to me. I must keep it away, but still they're coming closer. I'm putting in more effort to keep my fingers away. I have to really keep it away. I have to really use my mind now to keep it away. In fact, my hand is shaking also. And they seem to be coming closer. There's nothing I can do about it, though I'm trying my best. The experience for different people would have been different. For some people, like it did with me, the two fingers would have come closer. For some people, there might have been only slow movement towards it. And for some people, it didn't happen at all. Your fingers remained open as V. This is because you have been asking your mind for logic. Like I told you, NLP doesn't have logic. If you believed in NLP that it is possible, then your fingers would have touched each other. I told you NLP is all about your mind being like a computer. And if it's possible to reprogram a computer, it is possible to reprogram your brain also. Now here is the 1 million GB neck-top PC. This is the only PC that records feelings and stores subjective experiences. Using the latest 5 Windows operating system, just a saying, just showing that it's using the 5 senses. And 7 plus minus 2 conscious mind monitor. I'll tell you a little more about 7 plus minus 2 conscious mind monitor. Now, in the electrical part of the housing system, you have a fuse. Now, this fuse is to ensure that during overload, your costly equipment do not burn away. This 7 plus minus 2 conscious mind monitor is nothing but a God-given fuse, so that if your brain gets overloaded with too much information, it keeps brain still functioning with the fuse restricting the entry of information. Now, it's like a funnel. Mind at large, there is a large amount of information coming to you at any point of time. Just see, you're trying to stand at a street corner and you're trying to cross the road. There are so many things happening there. Plane is flying above. There are sound of a motorcycle racing behind you, not at that place where you want to rent, like that. Or there's a bird chirping. But you are not interested in all these information when you want to cross a road. You want to restrict the amount of information that goes into your mind, because it's a question of life and death in crossing a busy road. So you're concentrating on the light. You're concentrating on the guy who's on the motorbike is revving up. Just shoot across when the light becomes yellow. And, a lot of other things. You're just interested in what is in front of you. Whether vehicles are fully stopped when light has become yellow before it turns red. So essentially, for you to take decisions, you must have a limited amount of information, and you must keep out the chaff, a lot of unwanted information that comes to you. So you got mind at large, 7 plus minus 2 conscious mind monitor, which is restricting the unwanted information coming into you, and then you got the reality. We receive 2.4 million bits of information per minute. But consciously, we can handle only about 300 to 500 bits per minute. So because of this restriction of our brain's ability, this is a very, very important fuse given to us to ensure that our brain does not get overloaded. Welcome to the world of human subjectivity. You create entire movies in your mind of which you are the director, producer, and actor and actresses. Go back to your college days. Weren't you good at daydreaming? And it is much later that I found daydreaming is a good quality, but not in class while the class is going on. You know that you got from your college days sitting in the class, and when you are making movies in your mind, that it actually happens. Now, the fastest way of achieving a change of direction or to make a change of any kind in your life is to program your subconscious mind with the end result. Because once the end results are known to your mind, your mind will be acting like a scheduler or a project manager to ensure that you're doing everything right at the right time to achieve your goal. You will be able to send your brain places so that your feet will follow. Now we come to the senses, which are input devices. 5 senses are like windows which we open to the outside world. Now, you got the languages of the world, like English, Hindi, Malayalam, Japanese, etc. But mind has got a different language. Like, for example, you give input to a computer or laptop by the keyboard, which is normally English. It can be other languages also these days. Now the computer changes it to its own language, which is binary system. Once after that, the analysis is made or computations. Thereafter, it reconverts into the output, which will probably come out on the screen or as words. Now, the languages of the mind, these languages are determined by which of the five senses you prefer. Now, the five senses are visual. Seeing involves visual processing. Auditory. Hearing involves auditory processing. Feeling involves kinesthetic processing. This is a general feeling. Smell involves olfactory processing or O. Taste involves gustatory process or G. In NLP, they try to make everything as simple as possible, unlike psychiatry. Fine. In this case, you will see 4 and 5, smell and taste, there's olfactory and gustatory processes are also a type of feeling which can be clubbed with the general one, which is kinesthetic. The word used is kinesthetic for general feeling. So 4 and 5 can be merged with 3. So you have 3 major important senses. This visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Now, all of you process information using these 3 languages of the mind. There is normally, I have a test in which it says which is your preferred language of the mind, but I do not have time today to give you, that will take about 10 minutes. I cannot go into that test. But you yourself would know what you are. I'll give an example. Supposing, go back to the college days, lecturer is taking a lecture. A visual person would concentrate on what is written in the board, or if there is a PPT, on what the PPT is showing. The auditory person who's fond of hearing will be listening more than visualizing or feeling. Now, the person who's kinesthetic would give a lot of value to the gestures of the lecturer, because that is where he's emphasizing various things. It is very easy for you to find out yourself what is your preferred modality, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. So, what are the use of this? Now, based on your modalities, that is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, you got the second part called SUB-MODALITIES or dimmer switches. Now, SUB-MODALITIES refine modalities. Supposing you are a person who's visual, mostly visual, you also use auditory and kinesthetic. You normally use words like brightness, size, color, contrast, etc. in your conversation. An auditory person would normally use words connected to sound, which is pitch, tonality, resonance, etc. A kinesthetic or a feeling person would use words like pressure, temperature, intensity, etc. Now, what are the use of this? I'll just cover 2 uses. Remember that cycling incident where you fell off from the cycle and you hit a newspaper boy. Now you want to, this is very, very, blurred at the moment. You remember something of it, but not everything. Now you want to focus and bring back the earlier incident into your mind. So what you do is, first you'll try and use your visual abilities. Start asking yourself questions. Was it a bright day? What is the size of the bike? What is the color of the bike, etc., etc. Then you come to the auditory part and start asking, what is the pitch and tonality of my crying, and how much was the volume of crying, etc. And then you'll use your kinesthetic part. What is the pressure you felt on your knees? What is the temperature that day? What is the intensity of pain? What is the location of your pain, etc., etc. Once you ask this question, it is very, very easy to completely repicturize whatever happened that particular day. You are able to bring back everything which happened in a particular time, long back, which is at the back of your mind. The second thing which is very, very useful for you who are in business, particularly if you are in sales area, but even for others, when you are dealing with your boss or somebody else, it's very useful. What happens is, knowing whether your visual, auditory, or kinesthetic is good, but it is not that important as trying to find out whether the person you're dealing with is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Because you go into, I'll just take the example of a sales pitch which you're making. You go in to meet somebody. Now, you have to find out what his mode, or what is whether he's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. So you start the conversation, have 3-4 initial introductory statements, and he also would talk. Listen closely to the words he's using. A visual person will use visual words as given on the screen. Auditory person will be using more of pitch, tonality, etc. related to auditory. And the kinesthetic person will use words which are feeling in nature. It's very, very easy thereafter, if you make an effort, to find out what is the preferred modality or what is the submodality of the person whom you are talking to. Supposing you are a visual person, you normally would use his visual words, but now you must make an effort to have something with you as auditory words and kinesthetic, which requires some practice. Now you find that you are a visual person and the person whom you are talking to is a kinesthetic person. So you must make an effort to start using words which are related to kinesthetic. Suddenly, the mind of that person latches on to yours. Hey, here is a guy who talks my kind of language. He's talking what like. So involuntarily, you got his attention. So this is a very, very useful part in your discussions. It is also with a meeting with boss, meeting with subordinates. It's a very, very useful thing. And it's not very difficult to do. Now I'm going to give you a small exercise. What you got to do is, I'm going to put 3 slides on the screen. It will show, that one sentence which you have to read very fast. Like that, there will be one slide showing. I'll put it on for a very short while. Whatever it is, keep it in your mind. Or if you can write it down, if you have time, write it down. Then there will be a blank slide, another particular sentence. Then there will be a third one. But I'll keep it on for very, very little time. Okay? Now, I'm going to put on. Quickly read it. Okay. Leave it at that. Remember, if you have time to write it, you can write what it is. Next one. Quickly read it. Write it down if you've got the time. I'm going to put a third one, which is quickly read it and put it on. Now, I'm going to put on, these were the 3 things. Did you notice anything wrong with these sentences? You may or may not have found out, but since I cannot directly interact with you, I'll put it on. The first sentence was, A book on the desk. Second one is a car in the shed. Third one is a dog in the house. Now see the beauty of your brain. I told you of internal representation. In quick glance, you read it as a book on the desk. Now, the other will be a car in the shed. Actually when you read, your mind would have read it as a book on the desk. Then your internal representation comes. You go back to your younger days, younger English teacher teaching you grammar. He or she would have said, in a sentence, you cannot have the. So this would have been written by some guy who doesn't know proper English. So even though this is written, mind corrects it by itself, just like you got autocorrect on computers. So even though what your mind has read is a book on the desk, you read it out as a book on the desk. So this is how certain times your internal representation makes a quick analysis and your mind comes to your help. Now quickly, how many F can you count in the sentence below? Finished files of today are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. Quickly, read how many F's can you read in this sentence. How many F's did you count in the sentence? You might read from anything from 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. How did this happen? This is the actual one. Finish files of today. Like for example, you see 3 F's in red. These are important words. Others are all off. Now this is, those who have read only, seen only 3, is again making use of their brain to take out the chaff. Off is not important. So invariably, such people would have seen 3 F's only, because those are the only important words. Other off doesn't really make much of a difference. It's just keeping the sentence together. Now, those who are, of course, others who have been good with it, you keep on going to 7 F's. This is the answer given on the screen. Okay. Now we are coming to an interesting instruction. All of you, if you have worked in a large organization, all of you would probably have come across these things. I'll read it out along. It's coming on the screen as well as I'll read it out. It's a memo from CEO to manager. Today at 11 o'clock, there'll be a total eclipse of the sun. This is when the sun disappears behind the moon for 2 minutes, as this is something that cannot be seen every day. Time will be allowed for employees to view the eclipse in the parking lot. Staff should meet in the lot at 10 to 11 when I will deliver a short speech introducing the eclipse and giving some background information. Safety goggles will be made available at a small cost. The next level, manage to department head. Today at 10 to 11, all staff should meet in the car park. This will be followed by a total eclipse of the sun, which will appear for 2 minutes. For a moderate cost, this will be made safe with goggles. The CEO will deliver a short speech beforehand to give us all some information. This is not something that can be seen every day. Next lower level, department head to floor manager. The CEO will today deliver a short speech to make the sun disappear for 2 minutes in the form of an eclipse. This is something that cannot be seen every day. So staff will meet in the car park at 10 or 11. This will be safe if you pay a moderate cost. Now, floor manager to supervisor. 10 or 11 staff are to go to the car park where CEO will eclipse the sun for 2 minutes. This doesn't happen every day. It will be safe, and as usual, it will cost you. And finally, supervisor to staff. Some staff will go to the car park today to see the CEO disappear. It's a pity this doesn't happen every day. So you see what started the train right from top to the number of people who are there in between, and to finally what it has come to is there on the screen. Why is this so? Because we got quite a few filters in our mind. We delete, distort, and generalize the information that comes in from our senses based on the 5 filters. Now, here is a very simple diagram on how your mind works. Like I said, these are through the 5 senses: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory, dealing with eyes, ears, feeling, nose, and mouth. Now, as a first level of filters are there in your mind. These are languages, memories, values, beliefs, and attitudes. So, let us come to this. Now, the languages everybody will be knowing would be English, Hindi, and your mother tongue. So if the input is in one of these languages, your mind will take it in. Otherwise, it will get blocked right from the beginning. If somebody talks to you in Japanese, you won't understand a word. So therefore, it is blocked from coming in. Others are memories. Like for example, the person who had a bad memory about dog. Like this. Then values, beliefs, attitude. If your values are very high, you can never be corrupted. So all these are filters which prevents you from doing certain things. After it goes through the filters, it comes to internal representation. Remember, I told you internal representation is a very, very important factor, which everybody has got an internal representation about an experience right from the time you started walking. Even before you could talk, the first time you had fallen down while trying to walk, that is also there in your mind as an internal representation. These are in the forms of pictures, feelings, sounds, beliefs, and attitude. Now, once it gets to the next stage is a state of mind. This is an interactive one. You see arrows in both directions. State of mind is, just imagine you've gone to office, you started your work, and you had an argument with one of your colleagues or your boss, somebody that day. Another colleague of yours comes to your table and tries to say something. Half of what he says doesn't enter your head because your mind is in an agitated state of mind. So, keeping your mind cool during your work is very, very important. Not only while working, right through. The third thing is physiology. Imagine you got a very bad cold and cough, but you have to go to the office. Here also, you're more worried about your nose running and headache and other things. Somebody comes and tells you something to do. You do not absorb half of it because you are in a very bad physiological state. Ultimately, the output which comes out normally in a screen in a computer, but in your person, the output is in the form of words and body language. So this is a very, very simplified method which is shown particularly for engineers on how your mind works. And this is your decision-making process. Now, Baroque music is something from the old days. You can download this. It is very good to listen to when you are doing some project work or children are studying. Baroque music has got two aspects. It has got 72 beats per minute, and it does not have any harsh instruments like bells or gongs or something. In the old days, Baroque music used to be put in on aircraft, because once you're sitting, aircraft has started, you're belted in, and you start thinking, I hope the chap has put in enough fuel into the aircraft. Then I hope the engineer will develop enough power. I hope there is no cow on the runway. I hope the weather is good. I hope we won't have any mishap in the air. You have created a lot of worries even before the aircraft starts rolling. But if the Baroque music is there, then your mind latches on to the music, which is 72 beats per minute. And your mind will say, hey, good music. Don't get excited of what is going to happen. Just listen to the music and calm yourself. So especially this is a very good thing if you're a BP patient and you put on this music and sit for a longer time. It helps you reduce your BP. Now, I've almost come to the end of my workshop. I'm going to show you some shapes. These are all geometrical shapes. And there'll be, first one will be two shapes. You have to join it together in mind and to form a geometrical shapes, like a square, rectangle, triangle, etc. You know what a geometrical shape is. Now, you can keep one piece and you can rotate the other piece so that it's easy to join two pieces. I'll be going step by step. The answer of the first step will be shown in the second step, and like that. So each one you can actually draw it in your paper. It is very important that you physically draw it in your pad. The first one. These are the two ones which has got to be joined. You can rotate the second one and join it to get a geometrical shape. This is child's play because, as you can see from below, it is a square. Now, to this square, add a rectangle. Now, as you can see, this is also very easy. It is a rectangle, bigger rectangle, and to that you add two more pieces as shown in the slide. So this is also relatively easy. So you got something as what is shown on the left hand side. Now comes the problem. You add a parallelogram as given. Normally I offer $500 when I'm doing a live workshop to anybody who can do this. So far it has been child's play. So I'll leave you with it for about 30 seconds so that you can try and find the answer. Okay, I hope at least one of you has been able to get the answer. It is this. Has anybody got it? You can unmute and say. Okay, I haven't heard anything, so I presume nobody has got it. Now, what is the significance of this in your life? As you go through life, you gain experience over various things. You get various inputs. Based on the various input that comes in the situations, your experience increases. Therefore, you start developing theories on your own that with something else, some other situation adds up what is likely to be the result. Those were the ones which you uh, keep adding up. So the first four was not a problem because everything was falling in line with your way of thinking. Suddenly, you get that sixth piece, and whatever way you try, you cannot attach it to whatever you had got earlier. There's only one thing to do. Now you have to start relearning it, because with times lot of newer inputs come, newer theories. Therefore, some of your old theories which you have got in your mind may not work out. That is the time you've got to dismantle the whole thing which is there in your mind, and with the input of the sixth piece, rearrange your theories so that to achieve the result. So this could happen to you a lot of time. We have come up in the traditional way, and suddenly some technology comes which forces us to move. Unless you got an open mind to go back and dismantle your old theories and rearrange them, you are likely not to, you may not be able to proceed further. With this, I have come to the end of